So what do we want, right? As agents, as advisors, as business people, we want more of the right clients as efficiently as possible, right? That's what I'm all about. That's what my business is about. That's why you're here. And the challenge, one of the biggest challenges that we face is all the noise in the marketplace, right? All the information. It's been estimated that the average person is exposed to about 3,000 marketing messages a day. I'm not sure how they measure that, but if you're on the internet much and you walk through an airport, you're certainly going to get your marketing messages filled. So with all that, how do we get our message through, right? How do we stand out? How do we look different? Well, without question, the easiest, most efficient, fastest, most cost-effective way to create relevance with a new prospect, someone who doesn't know you, is an introduction from someone they do know and trust, right? Getting introduced. That's the easiest way to be relevant. It's the easiest way to get on somebody's radar, and at least it gets the foot in the door. Now, how you talk about your value will keep whether their foot stays in the door and opens up for you, but that introduction will get the foot in the door. So when I was preparing this program for you guys, I was thinking, what's changed? I've been doing this for 30 years. My first program for MDRT was in 1998. And so here's what I've observed change relative to the referral introduction process. The first thing is the movement, and you know this, from more transactional to more process-oriented. I mean, life insurance has always been a process sale, but even in that, some folks are more transactional than others. It's rare that the product is going to make you referable. It can a little, like if somebody experiences, learns about long-term care insurance, for instance, for the first time, and they weren't sure and what it would do for them and why it was important, they might talk about that to other people. But it's the process that they go through with you, it's going to make you referable in that. Now, there's also a move, as we know, to a more holistic planning, which I endorse. I think it's great. It's great for the client because they get more value. Right? The more you learn about your prospects and clients, the better you can serve them. The more holistic approach you bring, the better off they are. And you know what? The better off you are too, because you're going to become more super referable. It's going to be much easier to get those referrals and introductions because the depth of your relationship is stronger. So that's one change. The movement to virtual certainly has changed the referral process a little. Not the overarching principles. The principles are still the same. But sometimes we don't have the time that we would have if we had an in-person meeting. So sometimes we got to get things a little faster. It may take a little longer to build that trust rapport. You know, for some of you, the first time you did virtual meetings was when COVID hit. I've interviewed a few folks for my podcast. They were doing virtual meetings with all their clients across the country, long before COVID hit. So we know it can be done. The thing with the virtual is sometimes it takes a little bit longer. All right. What's really changed, and probably more than anything else, is the importance of actually getting connected, getting introduced, right? The old referred lead, call George, use my name. Well, George doesn't answer the phone. George is wondering why his friend gave his name out to somebody he doesn't know, right? People don't answer the phones like they used to, right? It's just really hard. And so we've got to think about connections, about getting introductions, and we'll talk a little bit as we go around that today. So from now on, first takeaway from today, when you're with a prospect, a client, a center of influence, anyone who has the ability to connect you with others, make sure you're using the word introductions, because that represents what we want, right? Let's talk about how you introduce me to your sister and brother-in-law, right? Let's talk a little bit about some folks that you might feel comfortable introducing me to, not referrals, introductions. Now, you'll hear me use the word referrals, old habits die hard, but when we're client-facing, prospect-facing, want to use the word introductions, all right? A couple ground rules. Can everybody give me a nod of the head real quick? Thank you. If you agree with anything I'm saying. Energy from the group, right? We all love to get energy from the group. You know what that's like. What we want to prevent, of course, for those of you who stayed up too late last night, is when the head goes down and doesn't come back up. So I have the perfect remedy to keep people awake in my sessions. You may want to borrow this if you do any seminars or presentation. I brought baseballs, and I found that throwing baseballs into the audience tends to keep people awake, right? Now, don't worry, they're squishy, right? They're not going to hurt anybody. Anybody want to play a little catch? All right, in the back there, these don't have a lot of weight to them, so we'll see if I can even make it back that far. Good thing it wasn't a candle, huh? If that light was a candle, oh, you ended up, okay, maybe do a shorter one here. Here we go, this is an easy one, right? All right, that I can do. Let's have some fun, all right? Let's have some fun. So this is my system in a nutshell, and we'll be covering most of this today in a short version, obviously. But the first thing you want to do is become referable through client engagement, and I'll define that for you and give you some ideas. Once we become referable and we have this engaged client on our hands, then we want to leverage. We want to be appropriately proactive to see if we might get introduced to other people, right? So there, you can promote, you can ask, we'll get into that. And then you want to get connected, you want to get introduced. And I ran out of time a little bit in the first group, so I'm going to give you an email address now so I don't forget, so you get this information. electronichahandshakes.com, electronichahandshakes.com. If I'm not able to get to the full amount of that I want to cover around electronic handshakes, you will get the guide there. It's free, no gimmicks, just go get it, all right? But what happens is when you get connected, then use the principles of leverage and engagement, I should say, then this will go forever. You can create a continual flow of good quality clients coming in through introductions, just using engagement, leverage, connection. All right, so referability. Are you referable? How do you know you're referable? Well, everyone in this room, myself included, should be getting referrals without asking. Introductions with a guy. So I was doing a program recently for a group, and I was saying you got to be referable, and he says, "Oh, Bill, don't you mean introducible?" Well, yeah, I guess. It's just kind of hard to say that, right? So what makes you referable? Well, here's one thing that makes you referable, and this is you taking a leadership role in your clients' lives. I think that's one reason why you can make good money in this business, because it takes courage to take leadership in people's lives. One of the biggest challenges that we have in our business is inertia, right? Clients are stuck in whatever they're doing or not doing, right? They feel guilty, they feel shameful, they feel confused, they think they're getting everything covered. And so we got to disrupt a little to get them thinking. And so Sir Isaac Newton, first law of motion, body in motion tends to stay in motion, body at rest tends to remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. Well, I think it's our job to be that little outside force. I use the word force carefully here, but we have to question their assumptions, and that takes a little courage. But when we help people make decisions that are in their best interest, that they wouldn't make without us, that's important work. That's good work, right? And when you do that, you become more referable. Julie Littlechild, I love to quote some of the work that she's done, because she's done some great work around this. What makes you more referable? Who gives referrals? Well, you can see on this chart that there's a low correlation between client satisfaction and participating in the process of referrals and introductions. Only 20% of satisfied clients. Engaged clients, on the other hand, extremely loyal, and they're the ones who participate in this process, right? Okay, Bill, what do you mean by an engaged client? Well, I'm glad you asked. And you guys are already doing this. You're already creating engaged clients to a degree, I'm sure, and I want to add a little more to you on this, for you on this. By the way, I see people taking pictures of slides, not a problem, but if you want to get the whole deck, just make sure I get your email address, give me a card, or if you go to bill@referralcoach.com and put MDRT Edge, I'll know what that is, bill@referralcoach.com, and I'll get you all the slides, all right? So first of all, you're creating a value connection. The things you teach, the questions you ask, the responsive service, the leadership role you take, right? All of that is that value connection. Then there's the personal connection, the trust that develops, and eventually sometimes a business friendship. And these are both very important. If someone sees your value, but they don't like you, trust you, they're not going to do business with you, they're not going to give you referrals, right? If someone likes you, trusts you, but they don't see your value, they're not going to do business. So throughout the entire relationship, I want you to always think, how do we keep adding value, and how do we keep building the personal side of the relationship? And so I want to give you a couple examples here. So in the prospect experience, meaning they're not yet a client, one of the most powerful things you can do with brand new prospects, could be the very first meeting, is to talk about your client-centered why. All right, so there's a lot of people Simon Sinek has a big YouTube thing, TEDx talk about why. There's a lot of different people talking about why now. Here's what I'm talking about here. This is why you believe in the value. Something that happened to you or a client or a family member, but you got in touch. You had that aha experience of this is important work. And there's usually a story there, isn't there? Especially if it's something that happened to you or you observe someone else. And then we make it client-centered by making sure we bring it to a benefit to them. Why are you telling them this story about you? Right? There's got to be a reason for it. You're not just talking about you. So let me give you some examples. Carol is in California. I did a program for a NAFA virtual presentation a few years ago, and I talked about this client-centered why. And she figured hers out and started using it and sent me an email. She said, Bill, I've been starting to close more cases. I'm starting to get unsolicited referrals, talking about my why. So I got her on the phone and we chatted about it. And so what happened is before she became an advisor, she and her husband got some bad advice. They lost some money. They were young. They recouped. It's okay. But she got interested in this world of being a financial advisor. And so now when she's with her prospects, based on the conversation we had, this is what she says, almost word for word. You know, that's a little bit about my company and the work I do, and certainly I have a lot of questions for you, and I know you have questions for me, and we'll dig into those. But before we do that, I just want to shift gears for a second, tell you a little bit about why I do this, what gives me energy and what drives me every day. And then she'll tell a little short story of how she lost some money, got bad advice, and then why is she telling this? She says to them, so I want to make sure I'm on a mission to make sure that what happened to me or anything remotely like it never happens to you or anybody else I know. So what happens is your prospects want to know what you do. They want to know how you do it. Those are important things. But if you're going to try to gain influence over their current and future financial lives, they also like to know, who are you? Who is this person? Right? And this will do that for them. How many of you now have something similar to this, some sort of a client-focused why that you share with your prospects? Anybody? Just a quick show of hands. Some of you do. Do people listen to you differently when you talk about why you do what you do? They do. It's because it's a story. And the brain listens differently to stories than it does all the other stuff we talk about. A couple more examples. Tyson Vine out of Cleveland. His story is interesting because his grandfather died young in a working farm, and they had to sell everything off from the farm because they didn't have estate planning, financial planning in place. So Tyson, as a young teenager, experienced what it's like not to have good planning in place. His father gets into the business. His father dies a little young, unfortunately. Tyson's a little worried, right? Does it come in threes? But his father left proper planning, estate planning, insurance, etc. So Tyson has experienced both, when it's not done right and when it is done right. And that's his why. And he has a video on his website. And if you go to tysonstory.com, tysonstory.com, you'll see his video. He knows I share this. He's happy with it. And then Dennis O'Keefe up in Fall River, Massachusetts, was always helping people navigate into retirement, but it wasn't until his dad retired that he really experienced the angst that many people go through in retirement. Do I have enough? Where's it going to come from? Where do I draw from first? All the worry that people have around this, and he experienced it a little bit more firsthand because it was his dad, and that's his story, and he shares that. And if you go to successfulmoney.com, that's Dennis's URL. It's a nice URL for a financial advisor, right? Successfulmoney.com. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see Dennis's video. And so you get a sense, real examples of what I'm talking about here. This will help you win more new business and will help you become more referable, introducible more quickly, all right? Todd, I interviewed for my podcast. A lot of great interviews on that, by the way. It's free, so I'm not trying to sell you anything other than the ideas. He has this whole team of advisors. You can see they all made a video that are on their homepage. He said some of them loved making the videos, some of them didn't want to do it, but they did. But it accentuates the why of the firm and makes it very powerful for them. All right, so that's a little bit about the prospect experience. Let's talk a little bit about the often overlooked and underutilized, if you will, part of the relationship, which is the onboarding. Think of the onboarding as the first 60 to 90 days of the new relationship, all right? And you want to make sure that you're adding value and hitting on the personal friendship side, or business side, I should say, business friendship. So there's a lot of things you can do, and some of you do these things. One great thing, if you're not doing it, if there's any assets under management or anything's generating a monthly statement, go over the monthly statement, the first monthly statement with your brand new client. They will love you for it, because most people don't want to admit that they can't really read the statement, don't really understand what it means. Right? So that's a simple little thing of bringing value. And again, if you get the slides, you'll have this list you can study. And then on the other side is the business friendships, handwritten note from other people in your office, even a personal call from someone else in your office who may be serving that client in some form, or an invitation to an appreciation event, or maybe even just breaking bread one-on-one with them. Randy Carver on my podcast, if you go to Randy Carver's episode, he does an educational event every month for his clients. They're for his clients. They can become prospecting events, but they're not a typical prospecting seminar. They really are educational events for his clients, some virtual, some in person. And so by the time someone is, a month or two in the relationship with Randy, they've already been invited to a couple of educational events. And then also he has monthly client appreciation events as well, some in person, some virtual. And so he's doing both in a very robust way, right? Don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Just add to maybe what you're doing a little bit now. And let me give you a couple of very specific examples. So Brian Sweet, many of you may know Brian up in the Minneapolis area. He has what he calls a 90-day dazzle. That's an internal term. He doesn't tell clients that we're going to try to dazzle you for 90 days, but they have a checklist, right, of things that they want to make sure they go through. One of the big things that's made a lot of introductions for him is a vision board. A board, a visual representation, some people call it a dream board, of who you want to be, what you want to have, where you want to go, right? How it's going to feel. Now, some of you have done this in the past. When we used to have magazines, remember that thing they used to print up, and we'd take scissors and cut out pictures and then use Elmer's glue and paste it on the poster board. Now it can all be done digitally. But imagine this, going through a dream board with a client of what they want to have, do, be in their life, what's important to them, and if it changes, to be in that conversation. Do you think you're going to create a deeper relationship with these folks? Yeah. Do you think you're going to learn about things in their life that are important that you might not have learned otherwise, and you can serve them? There could be even a product involved that would help them with that? Yeah. And then you're also going to be developing a knowledge of other relationships in their life. Relationships that are important to them. And you'll see in a minute where learning about those other relationships will help you with the introduction process. So kind of another version of this is Lester Matlock. When I was interviewing Lester, he told me that on his bucket list is he always wanted to be a bartender. He wanted to know what it was like to 10 bar, right? So his wife said, well, honey, I know you're not going to quit this business, but why don't we have a client appreciation event and you can be the bartender? And so that's what they did. And so everybody came. He was the bartender. They give him like a dime tip, it was a lot of fun. He practiced at a friend's restaurant a couple nights before and realized he really didn't want to be a bartender. But what happened is everyone who came knew it was his bucket list item, and they brought their bucket list items, at least one thing. They wrote them up on a big whiteboard, and that was the theme of the appreciation event. And now it's the theme of his business. So he makes sure he finds out what's important. You guys do this too. You find out about the dreams, but do you keep them alive, right? Do you keep supporting them throughout the relationship? See, most advisors and agents, they'll find out what's important. Maybe they'll make sure there's some money for it, but it doesn't always revisit the conversation every time you get together, but that's what he does. Sometimes he just encourages over time. Sometimes he makes introductions to help. And he always looks and see, does money need to be set aside for this? Because there's nothing worse than an unfunded dream. We don't want clients with unfunded dreams, right? And we are the ones who can help them figure that out. So these are a few different ways that people have added value, built business friendship at the same time in the first 60, 90 days of a new relationship. Some of you know that the book club thing, they built it around my book, Radical Relevance. We're doing that at 4:30. Even if you didn't get the book, I think you'll find the conversation very helpful, because what we're talking about here is going to help you get your foot in the door. And what we're going to be talking about at the book club event is what you say about what you do that will hopefully open the door and keep it open for you, right? We get introduced, great, and that borrowed trust will carry us so far, but then how we talk about our value prop will determine whether it keeps going or not. So I look forward to seeing you there. I'm not selling books or anything there. I'm not allowed to do that. But even if you didn't buy the book, I think you'll find it helpful. All right, so let's talk about being proactive without begging, all right, like this little cute little pooch here. So one way to be proactive, short of asking, is to promote introductions. Sometimes I call it planting seeds, because it's things you could say early and really throughout a relationship that does three things. What I'm about to share with you, it does three things. It sometimes just plants the seeds, just something you bring up and it gets it introduced into the relationship. Nothing magical happens right away. Sometimes you can get introductions right on the spot just by bringing it up in a very soft way. And then it also acts as a barometer. You see how they react to some of these things, and then you get a sense, is this person going to be open to a conversation, or maybe do I wait a little bit longer, right? So one way to get it introduced very, very quickly, brand new relationship, if you met them to an introduction, celebrate that, right? It's great that George introduced you to me. I don't know about you, when I meet people through introductions, I feel more comfortable. My clients tend to feel more comfortable. True, yeah. And it is true, is it not? This is not a tricky sales technique. This is the truth. People feel more comfortable. And so just acknowledge it, just celebrate it quickly. That's about it. This is a huge one. This can make a big difference for you, I guarantee it. Practice it a couple of times with a colleague or a friend, and then do it with your clients or prospects. If you're going into a fact finder discovery, you want to say this. You know, as we get started in this process, I want to alert you to something that's very common. People start to think of others in their life, and they wonder, oh, should my siblings do this? Should my parents do this? Are my children old enough for this? It's very common to think of others. We'll finish the process for you. We're here for you. And if you do identify someone, we should chat. We say, does it make sense to introduce? And if so, we'll make sure we come up with a comfortable way. Does that sound good? And they go, yeah, that sounds good, right? It's not an ask. It's just to promote, right? Now, has anyone ever been doing a discovery meeting, fact finder, and had this brand new prospect or client think of someone and tell you that they did? Yeah, it happens. We know it happens, right? So this is the truth. Not a tricky sales gimmick. We're just shining the light on something we know happens. You heard me use the word alert. I kind of like that word because it catches their attention. I want to alert you to something. You don't have to use that word, but I like it, right? And this will create opportunity. And sometimes you'll see their eyes like light up and you realize they just thought of somebody. Now, you can just leave it at that, or at the end of the meeting, if you want, you could say, you know, I did mention that sometimes people think of folks as we go through this process. Did anybody come to mind? What are you going to hear? Yes or no? Doesn't matter. You're still moving forward with the relationship. You haven't really asked yet. Maybe too soon to do that, but it's a great way to get it started. I've been teaching this for a long time. I got a book with this title. Some of you use this. You've heard it from me before. Don't keep me a secret. Right. Simple little thing. Goes into their unconscious, and then later they're talking about personal finance, retirement, insurance, whatever, and they remember. Don't keep me a secret. Now, I've had some people tell me this is a little too cutesy for them. It's not something they could say, and I'd say, good, don't use it, don't say it, doesn't fit you. The next one I'm about to give, it probably will fit, but for some, they love this. It becomes almost a theme in the relationship. I've seen people put it on their signature file, you know, P.S., don't keep me a secret. I used to have referral thank you cards that have my picture on it and a little talk bubble that says, thank you for not keeping me a secret, right? So you can have fun with this if you want. If you say, don't keep me a secret to someone, if you say, hey, I'm glad you're seeing value in what we're doing, please don't keep this important work a secret. Are they going to fire you? Are they going to get upset? No, right? They may say, well, we're pretty private. All right, now you know. You've identified someone. You might want to wait a little longer before you talk about this. Here's a soft, easy way. Never too busy to see if I can be a resource. Friends, family, colleagues. Notice the words to see. Those are the qualifying words. Never too busy to see if I can be a resource. Have you ever taken on clients that don't fit your practice? Don't do that, right? That's a lose-lose situation. Let your clients know. You're never too busy to see if you can be a resource. It's important, it's a good match. And if you're not the right person, you know a few other folks that may very well be the right person. That'll stop you from getting folks that don't fit, right? Now, anybody fairly new, you're probably not new, but maybe have some associates that are new, you can take the to see out, right? Because they'll talk to anybody who's breathing. But for most of you, you want to be a little more in the qualifying mode around this. Let's talk about asking. I love this video. I didn't order it, and I didn't think I ordered it in slow motion, but now I'm glad I did because it's very cool. Because we all have barriers around this stuff, right? We're human, so we have mistaken thinking and beliefs, and you want to be able to ask without looking like this guy, right? When I have people call me up for coaching or my academy or wherever, they say, Bill, can I learn how to do it without looking like, they either say the creepy referral guy or cheesy referral guy. Those are the two phrases I hear. And nobody wants to look like this guy. Even this guy probably doesn't want to look like him anymore, right? So here's what I know. We could spend an hour on this, but I won't. But I do know that you are confident and smart people. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. I know that, right? But when it comes to asking for introductions, many of you turn into a bowl of quivering jello, right? All of a sudden that smart confidence just goes out the window. Well, do you believe in your value? I suspect you do. Do you believe in your value enough to feel uncomfortable spreading it to other people, right? That's the trick here, right? The secret to success is to be able to be willing to do something and do it wrong. And then keep doing it till you get it right, right? And you're not going to lose any clients. You're not going to hurt any relationship. No one's going to die, right? Here's a great attitude. Would you agree with me that going into any situation expecting a certain outcome increases the chances of that outcome happening? True. Doesn't guarantee it. But it's the awareness and the preparation. Ask athletes. They'll visualize a round of golf or a game. I used to be a professional musician. I used to visualize a performance. Attitude of confident awareness. I don't recommend you say to your prospects and clients, I expect you to introduce me to people. That's not what I mean. No. It's your confidence in the value that you provide. You know you do important work for individuals, businesses, their employees, etc. Right? Huge ripple effect to the work you do. And then you have the awareness. One of the things you want to do in this business is build a very strong curiosity muscle, where you really get curious about your clients and who they know and what circles they run in, just to get to know them. But the side benefit of that is you then do build a little inventory of people they know. Get to know them as well as you can, because that's your job, to serve them as well as you can. But the side benefit is creating a little bit of inventory of folks you can help. So what's the wrong way to ask? The wrong way to ask, you've done it, I've done it, everybody's done it, right? You may still do it after we're done here. But the wrong way is to throw open the whole universe. Who do you know who can help with this work? Can you think of anyone who should know about this important work? Look, I suppose it's better than nothing, and occasionally lightning strikes and they do think of someone, but most of the time this fizzles, does it not? Many of you have done this, we've done this, it doesn't go anywhere, right? Because you're giving them too many people to think of. What we need to do when we ask for introductions is narrow the scope, narrow their mind's eye. We're actually trying to get them to picture people in their mind's eye, ultimately, in the ask. So many of you are familiar with my VIPS method. I don't have time to go into depth on that, but I'm going to give the essence real quick here with what I like to call a bullseye referral. So the best place to start and asking for introductions is specific people you know they know. And if you don't know anyone your clients know, then I would respectfully suggest you're not doing your job as getting to know your clients so that you can be the best possible advisor to them, right? Heck, you at least know they're the beneficiaries of their estate, insurance, annuity, or whatever, right? Specific people you know they know. You can do a little research. You know they're involved in a philanthropic organization or an industry trade association. Pretty hard not to know a few folks. You know they have siblings or whatever. Very close second, very powerful. The tried and true, you all know about this, life events, money in motion. These are great categories. Why? Because think about a lot of the clients that come into your life, a lot of them, something's going on for them, isn't it? That's what triggered them wanting to meet with you. They have a life event going on. They have money in motion and going on, and usually they're inextricably linked, right? Because of that. And if you get the slides, just send me an email, bill@referralcoach.com, or give me a card or a piece of paper, and just put MDRT Edge, and I'll get these lists to you. The money in motion. But what's good about these is you can not know anybody in a client's life and still have a place to go with this. And by the way, with these categories, people selling a business or selling a piece of property or changing jobs or an inheritance, don't give all these categories at once. Be patient, be confident, one at a time. You know, I brought a few categories of people we do some important work for. I'd like to run these by you a little bit, see if it triggers anybody you think. And then if it does, we'll talk about the best way, the most comfortable way for you to introduce me to them. So for instance, you came to me because you were changing jobs. Let's start there, right? You don't want to go and say, you know, we work with a lot of people that have, in our business, we call it money in motion. They're selling property or they're selling a business. And what's happened is their brain is like going all over the place. It's not landing anywhere. One at a time. And help them picture people in their mind's eye, and you'll be very productive with this. Now, you can open it up a little bit more, LinkedIn, directories. I'm going to make sure at our event, the book club event at 4:30, I'm going to make sure they ask me about LinkedIn, because I've learned some things about LinkedIn. First of all, the most people making money on LinkedIn are the people trying to sell us how to make money on LinkedIn. Right? Somebody over there got it. Now, some people are having success with LinkedIn, and I'll share you the mistakes that people are making. We'll do that at the book club event. You can open it up. You can get the full-scale brainstorming, but just don't start there. You can say, you know, that's a couple ideas I had. Josh, can you think of anybody you should know? Right? So let me model this for you, give you a sense of what it might sound like, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is a value discussion. I call it a value check-in. I want to make sure this prospect or this client feeling good about the work, right? I'm going to ask open-ended questions. You know, we've been through a process to get to this point. Can you tell me the value you feel you've gotten from this process? And they'll tell me some good stuff, right? I'll say, great. You know, and you may recall when we first met, I talked about I'm kind of on a mission to help people make financial decisions that are in their best interest that they might not make without a financial professional to help guide them. And so I was hoping we could put our heads together for a minute and do a little brainstorming, see if we could identify a few folks that you think should at least be aware of what we do. I have a few very specific ideas I'd like to run by. A couple people you mentioned in past meetings. Who did I mention? Well, I'll tell you. And a couple categories. And you're in one of those categories. What category am I? It creates fun, it creates curiosity, letting them know you've come prepared. And then you say, well, you know, you mentioned your sister and brother-in-law a couple times. Assuming we come up with an approach that feels comfortable for everybody, how would you feel about introducing me to them? I'm always making sure that I insert, we're going to make this comfortable. Because when you talk about referrals or introductions to folks, a lot of them will immediately go to, mistakenly so, they're going to give you phone numbers and you're going to bug their friends. You don't want that, they don't want that, that's not where you're going, but they don't know that. So I'm always planting that seed or promoting the fact we're going to make this comfortable, right? So assuming We come up with an approach that feels comfortable for you to introduce me to them. Would you be open to that? Can we talk about that a little bit? That's what it sounds like. Is that going to hurt a relationship? Are they going to stop working with me? They just expressed all the great value? No, they may not want to do it. That's fine. Show of hands, real quick. You've asked a client for referrals in the past, or introductions. They didn't give you one when you asked, but that same client did it later in the relationship. Anybody experience that? Look at the hands. Half of the group. So we know the worst thing that happens when we do this is we plant the seed. That's the worst thing. All right? Never hurt a relationship. Never, ever. Now, I was talking with a gentleman, Sydney, in the hallway a little bit about getting referred up to the right folks, because I know that as you become more successful in this business, sometimes that's what you want. We know that people tend to refer lateral and down on the economic ladder, generally speaking. So how do you increase your odds of getting referred to the right types of people? Introduced to the right types of people. So first thing you want to do is segment your book if you haven't already done that. You know, who are your A's, who are your B's, who are your C's? Just being clear, right? And everyone has different criteria. Could be income, could be assets under management, could be just well connected in the community. There's different criteria for who fits in A, B, and C. Oh, and don't forget your whys, right? Why am I still talking to these people, right? You all have a few of those. But if we know, since people tend to refer, introduce, lateral, and down, you want to increase your odds by asking your B's or your B pluses or just your A's, right? Now, you can ask a B or a C sometimes, but it's difficult. I mean, what I couldn't say to you, if I may pick on you for just a second, you know, I was hoping we could talk about folks you might be willing to introduce me to, and truth is, I'd be looking for people a little more successful than you. That would be hard to say, right? So, here's what we need to do. We need to teach the right clients, the A's, the B's, whatever we're looking for, who we serve the best, for whom our processes are best suited. Notice I'm not saying who we're looking for. That's an advisor agent-centered methodology, verbiage, who we're looking for, who we serve the best, who our practice processes are best geared to serve. Can you get that subtle distinction? That's more about the prospect, the client. So teach them who you serve the best. Teach them how to recognize. These are the money in motion life events things sometimes, right? What do people go through? What are they going through that typically trigger them to work with you? Educate them. This is your first line of defense of not getting the right ones. And you use this to promote, right? You can just say, hey, you know, a lot of folks like to introduce the work I do to others, and you know, sometimes I'm the right fit, and sometimes I'm not the right advisor, and it's always important that it's a good match. So I just want to share with you some of the criteria of the folks that we serve the best, for whom we do our best work. You may not know their exact situation, but you usually have a sense. And if I'm the right person to serve them, I'll let them know, and I'll bring great value. If I'm not, maybe I have someone else I can introduce them to, right? So we're just educating our potential sources here to get the right ones. And then make sure you teach how to connect, right? Word of mouth may be great for books and movies, but word of mouth is not enough for our business, right? We need to get introductions, connections. So teach these folks. Thank you for talking to others about me. Next time you do that, can you see if maybe you can create an introduction, right? Because people put this work off. And so if I don't get introduced to those folks, odds are I won't even have a chance to help them, right? So how do you escape from this conversation? Because not everybody wants to do this. My friend Barry Alberstein calls it the graceful exit. I call it the emergency exit, because I just have fun. And it's really just planting the seed. You say, look, if you recognize someone should know about the work we do, just don't keep me secret. Makes sense? Oh yeah, okay. Or, you know, George, Martha, I just wanted you to be aware of the fact I'm never too busy to see if I can be a resource for other people you care about. Fair enough? Yep, fair enough. Then you're done. You've not hurt a relationship. You've planted a very nice seed that can definitely bear fruit in the future. To avoid objections, some of you have mastered this one. Just don't ask. I mean, right? If you ask, the answers can be no. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? And if you can have fun in this, if it fits you and fits the people you're with, let me give you a few examples. Art is a financial professional in Baltimore, very fun guy. People love him, very playful. He says, look, we're just brainstorming here. I'm looking for about 100 people. And his clients go, 100 people? Art, we don't know that many people. We only had 60 at our wedding. You got to be kidding, please. Yeah, too many, huh? How about 3 or 4? Oh yeah, 3 or 4, that's not a problem, right? So he always walks away with 3 or 4 introductions just by the contrast and having fun, right? Now, I was talking to a gal on the phone recently who tried this, but she didn't do it right. Rather, he uses 100, which is obviously ridiculous, right? She said 20. I'm looking for about 20. They thought she was serious. Got to be more contrast, right, if you're going to have playfulness around this. Doug is a financial advisor in Omaha. Doug says, look, we're just brainstorming here. I got a few ideas I want to buy you. First and foremost, do you know any lottery winners? And they laugh, right? No, Doug, we don't know any lottery winners. That's fine. I got a couple other ideas, right? You can see how that just takes the tension out of things. If you're working with like business owners and you say, hey, I identified a few other business owners in your industry on the board of directors of your association, you know, I was thinking about reaching out to them. I just want to know, if you were me, who would you avoid at all costs? They'll grab that list right out of your hand and tell you who to avoid. And they'll also tell you who they'll be comfortable introducing you to, right? So have some fun with this if you can. It makes it a lot easier. All right, you know about the book club, 4:30. Where do we get started with this? Make a love list. Let's find the path of least resistance for you and for clients. Those are people who love you. You all have some clients who love you. You've got a great business friendship going on. Blame it on me. Say you went to this session, this guy taught you about how to ask for introductions. Can I try it out on you? Right? And they'll say, sure. If they're from New York or Long Island, they'll say, give it your best shot, you know. And then also part of your love list is people who've already done this. They've already demonstrated a willingness to introduce you to others. Maybe you didn't ask, right? You know, 6 months ago, you introduced me to your sister, Linda. I appreciate that. Thank you. I didn't even ask. And I know she told you we're working together. Yeah. I guess now I'm asking. I got a couple ideas I'd love to run by if that's okay. Oh, okay. Right? That's easy. Path of least resistance for you and for them. That's where you get started with this. So as I kind of wind this up, I want you to think in terms of preparation. You know, athletes, sorry, let me go back. Athletes before a game, a match or whatever, they have a pre-game routine, right? I was a professional musician. I used to have a pre-concert routine, right? So I want you to have a pre-appointment routine related to this. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make your agenda for the meeting. Whatever that meeting is, make sure you run it from an agenda. Stop winging it when it comes to meetings. Clients love it, checking off the boxes. They love it when you're organized. You're going to run a more efficient meeting. You'll have more time for this, and you won't forget. And then you put value discussion or value check-in or communication review. That's your check to make sure value is being recognized, right? That's the trigger for this. And then you think, who do I know that they know, right? You're doing this ahead of time. You think of what categories might I run by them. You can't run all those categories by them, but there might be a few that you know fit their world a little bit better. So now when you go on this meeting, you're going to be a little bit more purposeful, right? If you wing it every time, no wonder you might wimp out, right? And then practice, totally underutilized skill in this industry is the practice. So make sure I get your email address if you want the slides and a couple other gifts. electronichandshakes.com. We'll go into a lot of detail around those introductions that are important to get. And then you can always ask me questions down the road. Happy to help you out. And the one thing I want to mention is I'm writing a book. I'm writing 2 books right now. One is called The Language of Referrals, which is going to be all the scripts and stuff I've taught. That'll be out in January. But the one I'm really excited about, I'm writing a book on beliefs and mistaken assumptions and the complicated relationship we all have with money. And it's not just our clients, guys and gals. We all have a complicated relationship with money. And the thing about the work you do is it's so powerful, and have you ever stopped to think about the ripple effect of what you do? That when you serve one person and you help them get their financial life in order, it ripples to other family members, to employees, and to generation, and you can help create generational wealth in communities where they never had generational wealth before, right? Such powerful work. So it's always an honor to be in front of you. I'm done. I'll be hanging around for questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.